Hello, and welcome to the question and answer section of ClockFuneralHome.com, where you can get all of your funeral questions answered without ever really talking to a funeral director. Well, maybe not every single question, but hopefully the ones that you want answered. And I am a funeral director, but you can't really talk to me here, only listen. But that's okay. I'm Dale Clock from Clock Life Story Funeral Home. And I know that some people think the funeral homes are kind of spooky and funeral directors can be a little creepy. But I hope that I can show you that I'm not that way, and neither is our funeral home. As you can see by this page, I'm a husband, a father, a pretty good singer and piano player, a lousy golfer, a decent handyman, the chief cat litter cleaner, and an all-around nice guy. At least that's what my wife and kids say. And I want to thank you for visiting this section of our website. It's my hope that over the next few minutes you'll learn some things about funeral planning that will make things easier for you if and when you find yourself in a situation where you have to plan a funeral. So let's get started. The top 5 funeral questions. These are the top 5 questions that we get asked about funerals when people call us on the phone. I'd like to give them to you in reverse order, kind of like Late Night with David Letterman, except not quite as funny. At number 5. How do I plan my own funeral so my children won't have to? At number 4, the nursing home told us we should get our funeral plans in order. How do we go about doing that so we can qualify for Medicaid? At number 3, what do we do when my mom dies? At number 2, what does a funeral cost? And at number 1, what does a cremation cost? And the answer is, well, that depends. That's right. There is no direct answer to any of those questions. It depends on a lot of different factors. It depends on what you want to do. It depends on what is important to you and your family. It depends on what your budget is. It depends on if you have life insurance. It depends on if you own cemetery property. It depends on what options are available. It depends on what time of year it is, and on and on and on. The challenge to all of this is you don't know what you don't know. So it's the funeral home's job to ask questions and listen to the answers. And then we can educate you based on the answers that you give us. We can show you all the options available so we can find the solution that is best for you, because that's really what we want to do in the end. When planning a funeral, there are 4 major areas where decisions need to be made, and the choices that you make in these areas will help us narrow down the next set of options we can show you, so in the end we will end up with the kind of service that is right for you. These 4 major areas are your budget, whether you are choosing burial or cremation, viewing the body, and what type of services and visitation you want to have. Now, these 4 areas are in no particular order of importance here on the screen. In other words, you don't have to choose one before you choose the other. But the decisions you do make in any of these areas will affect the other areas. As I explain each in a little more detail, I think you'll see how everything fits together. There are very few people out there that have unlimited budgets. So when most of us have to make all sorts of purchase decisions in our lives, we have to look at the funds available before we make those decisions, and funerals are no different. The cost of funeral services typically vary between $2,500 and $15,000, depending on the type of services, merchandise, and options that you choose. The funds used to pay for these costs generally come from these sources: insurance, prearranged funeral funds, savings, individual family members, and credit cards. Social Security, veterans, and other benefits are sometimes available, but they are limited and not meant to cover all the costs. So knowing what your budget is can help you make decisions in the other main areas. The next main decision area is whether you are choosing burial or cremation for the final disposition of the body. And for both of those options, there are 4 other decisions that will need to be made. Where? Where will the burial or cremation take place? Which cemetery do you want to use, or which crematory would you like to use? When? When will the burial or cremation take place? Will it take place before or after the services, visitation, and gatherings? In what? What will the body be placed in? You'll need to choose a casket and a burial vault, and in the case of cremation, you'll need to choose a cremation casket, and you'll need to choose a cremation urn for after the cremation. Will you be present? Do you want to be there for an official graveside service with other people present? Would you like to just witness the burial, or would you like to witness the start of the cremation? The crematory that we use, Phoenix Crematory, which is owned and operated by the Klock family, has a wonderful observation room where it's very customary for some religions to view the start of the cremation. You will need to make decisions in each of these 4 areas, no matter whether you're choosing burial or cremation. The next main decision area is whether or not you want to view the body. And there are 3 options available here: no viewing, private family viewing, and public visitation. No viewing doesn't mean that you never see the body. It just means that you are going to say your final goodbyes at the place of death. Typically, this would be at the hospital, or the nursing home, or at the home. The second choice is private family viewing. This typically takes place at the funeral home. The body is generally not embalmed, although it is cleaned up and prepared for viewing. It's set for a limited time with limited attendance, meaning it typically takes place only for an hour or so, and it is limited to just the family, not for the general public. It's meant to say final goodbyes, and you can have private family viewing whether you're choosing a burial or a cremation. The third is public visitation. This usually takes place at the funeral home or the church. The body is embalmed, it is dressed and casketed, times are published in the newspaper or on the internet, and the public is invited. And you can have public visitation whether you are choosing burial or cremations. There are no rights or wrongs when we're talking about viewing the body, but it is important to think about all of the people involved, children, grandchildren, family, and friends, and try to consider their needs too when making your decision about viewing the body. The last main decision area is visitations and services. There are 4 sub-areas where decisions will need to be made: where, when, what type, and who is involved. Where will the visitation and services take place? At the funeral home, church, at a club, in the park, or at your home? When will the visitation and services take place? Which day? At what time? And how long will they last? What type of services and visitation do you want to have? Will they be traditional, religious, a life story celebration, or a farewell party, fraternal, military, or a combination of all of the above? And who will be involved? Clergy, speakers, musicians? Will family members be talking? Do you want the funeral home staff there? Will there be a military service, fraternal, or other clubs involved? As you can see, there are lots of different options available, and the decisions that you make in this area will affect all of the other areas too. So let's review the top 4 decisions. Number 1, your budget. Number 2, burial or cremation. Number 3, viewing the body. And number 4, visitation and services. As you can see, there are lots of decisions to be made, and there's no easy answer. But I hope by going through these, we've given you an idea of what you need to think about before you make funeral plans. So what about the answers to the top 5 funeral questions? Well, if you've watched this far, then I hope you can see that there are no simple answers. So we've created separate presentations to answer the top 5 questions in more detail. You can find those presentations in the question and answer section of klockfuneralhome.com, along with other presentations on a lot of other topics too. And if you have any other questions that we haven't answered, please email me at daleclock@klockfuneralhome.com. If you let me know what you need to know, then I'll put a couple of presentations together so we can let everybody know. This has been Questions and Answers from Clock Life Story Funeral Home, your best source for answers, solutions, and guidance. Thanks for listening. I'm Dale Clock.